This is the Coaching Leader Podcast, a resource for modern, busy people leaders like you who know that just directing people simply does not work in the long run. We provide focused skill practice and the relevant thinking models, so you will ask better questions and make your team shine. Freshly served to you by IntelliCoach.org from hot and spicy Singapore.
Hello and a very warm welcome to it's already the third episode of the Coaching Leader Podcast. So today is part of a two-part episode, and I want to spend a bit of time talking about solving itself. We've introduced coaching a little bit in the past episodes, and today we'll talk about why we love solving for others. And in the next episode, we'll have a look at what could be the downside of solving for other people. So when I talk of solving again, in case this is the first episode you're listening to, solving versus coaching. So I've introduced coaching as something which is very different to solving problems for others. So imagine for a moment somebody comes to you, or I come to you, and ask you, sorry, I have real trouble cleaning up my basement. It's driving me crazy. For months I've been trying to do it, and I simply don't get down to it. In this very moment, what do you do? As a friend, as a colleague, what do you do? Would you automatically come up with a solution and say, oh wow, yeah, I had the same issue and this is what I did? Or you tell them, why haven't you just started? Sometimes that's just the easiest thing, right? So what's the big deal? Yeah, I've been cleaning up my basement many times before, even if it's messy. Or you say, oh yeah, I totally hear you. Let me tell you what I think you can do. So very often we are very quick in solving, and coaching is something which is very different. It's the other way around. We don't give our advice right away, and we hear the other person out. So today, let's talk a little bit about why we do this, why we are very often very quick to share what we think someone else could or should do. It's a very normal thing for us. This is not supposed to mean that solving itself is wrong. By no means. So don't go away from this podcast thinking, oh, because I learned about coaching, I should coach every single conversation that I have. That's not the case. Because in every human interaction, especially when we are a leader with our team members, coaching, advising, mentoring, directing, they all play very important roles. So the more important thing for us to learn is and to understand is when should we use which style. So I want to share with you a few reasons which I think contribute to us solving very quickly. And I came up with about 7 reasons. But the most important is if somebody asks you, can you help me? Or I have this problem, I have this challenge, and you tell them what to do, we genuinely want to help. And that's our reason number 1. And that's really true. We want to help. Yeah, and it quite appeals to our instincts to do this. It's a very positive emotion, and we often are in situations where we need help, and we're also thankful if somebody helps us. The second reason why we help, why we instinctively solve for others, is because it lets us rely on one of the most important things that probably made us great in our current role as a leader. And that is our knowledge and our expertise. And that is not just functional, it is implicit knowledge, it's organizational knowledge, it's things we picked up. It's basically a code word for our seniority. So when we advise, when somebody comes to us and they ask us how to deal with a certain person, how to manage a certain project, a crisis, for example, we jump into action because most likely we've seen it before. If you have been in any functional organization for 10, 15, 20 years and you have been moving around roles a little bit, you've basically seen 80, 90, 95% of all the situations and human behaviors that can happen in this kind of organization. So yes, it helps us rely on our seniority. And very, very often what we do when somebody asks us for help is we automatically map it We hear something and we automatically try to find something that fits. It's like a puzzle piece. Somebody comes to us with a puzzle piece and we'll find something that fits that exact piece. It's a piece of advice that, based on our judgment in the moment, could be helpful to the other person. These were our first two reasons. We genuinely want to help, and we use something which made us great, which is our knowledge and expertise. Number 3, we help because we love to be needed and reaffirmed. And that plays to some of the very fundamental needs of any human being. And I'm completely included here. Because when I coach, I always want to be helpful. And countless times I've caught myself in dispensing advice and then realizing it might not have been the best thing to do in that moment. There are two sources which come to mind for me here to support this. The first is a very interesting niche book that I read a while ago. It's called the Ellipsis Manual. It's about engineering human behavior. And in there, we talk about some fundamental needs of people, appreciation, approval, and acceptance. And when we help other people, when we give advice, it satisfies basically all these 3 very most fundamental needs. When we help and the other person finds it helpful, we usually get appreciation. It's also an approval for our status, and we feel accepted for our role. Daniel Pink also comes to mind for me. He's more popular, and he described quite famously as needs for people that autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy really speaks to the fact that we as a leader, we make use of our independent role as an advisor. We have value on our own. Mastery, again, it shows really that our knowledge and expertise are something super value to use. And purpose, the third one, when we are able to give advice, we feel useful. We feel useful to people. It simply flatters us if we are needed. And very much it reinforces our self-image of being competent, somebody who's thought after. I see it very often when people are most proud when they can say, look, all these people come to me for advice. And that's great, because that means you have a very solid foundation of knowledge and expertise in the organization. However, one of the interesting side effects is these fundamental needs also make us easy to manipulate. Because I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of the Ben Franklin effect. So it talks of an anecdote of how Ben Franklin dealt with somebody who didn't like him. All that Ben Franklin did was ask the other person for a favor. And that made the other person feel important. And suddenly the relationship was working much better, because the other person felt they were in a superior role. They were able to graciously provide something. And this providing something can include advice. So one of the smartest things to get into somebody's good books in any organization is to go around and ask for advice. And the interesting thing is that people who give advice will think you are smart for asking them for advice. It's not the other way around. Asking for advice doesn't make you often stupid. It makes you very often smarter in the eyes of the person who gives advice. So be careful. Sometimes when people ask you for advice, it's actually might be a small way of winning you back. So that's a positive thing. Or it could also be one way to manipulate. There are always two sides of a coin on there. So we got 3 so far. Number 4. We often give advice very quickly because we think people need our advice right now. So somebody comes to us and they ask for advice. They share with us their challenge, and we feel that we have to give them help right away. The first thing we have to tell them is something that helps them. So we don't even take the time to very often listen or probe a little bit more. So part of that mapping, what I just told you about, is that we automatically decide at some point while we listen to somebody that I know enough now. I know exactly how I can fix this person's problem. And at that moment, when we do this, while the other person is talking, we stopped listening. And then very often we might interrupt and say, look, I think I know how to help you. Let me share an idea. So we think very often that we have to give our advice right away, just because the other person feels in distress. But don't forget, very often people simply want to be listened to. The first need of people is to feel understood. So it comes back to these fundamental needs that we just shared: appreciation, approval, acceptance. When we give advice right away, we don't automatically satisfy people's needs. So people want to feel understood. Number 5, when we give advice, it keeps us in control. And that is very important, that many people, I think, probably don't realize. So once we've been in the workforce for a while, and you probably have been, you have been a leader for a good number of years, you have very likely become pretty good at problem solving. And you are very good at analyzing the hell out of anything that happens to you or happens to your team members. And very often we know what to say. We have enough knowledge to give advice, and we will give advice. We will say what's in our mind, or we do it indirectly. For example, by asking questions, which are in fact disguised solutions, right? So for example, why haven't you tried doing this? Why haven't you talked to this person? Or can't you try readjusting the budget value in this manner? So these are all solutions disguised as questions. And because we ask them with why, it also implies a judgment to the person in front of us, to say sort of, what made you so stupid that you haven't tried it before? We don't mean that, of course, but that's how it feels. So it feels almost a necessity for us to do this, because when we dispense with our advice, we keep in control of the conversation. And it would almost be irresponsible for us not to do this. Because God knows what happens if we lose control in that moment, right? What happens if somebody comes to me, asks me for their advice, how to deal with the situation? And of course, I right away know what I would do. But in that moment, if I sit back and give them a chance to think it through, and I help them, God knows what might happen if I gave them a chance. They might go on and on and on, come up with solutions that are ridiculous, of course. Or things that are just not efficient, because I know better. Again, we might not say it that way, but very often we feel that. We feel that nervousness, that impatience in us when somebody else talks and they think through an idea, they stumble in their thinking. We want to interrupt, we want to cut it short. We want to regain control of that situation where somebody's thinking is just not mature enough. And if we were to coach in that moment, we would lose, a little bit of the power that our position gave us as an advisor. So coming to number 6, it's quite related. Solving something right away gives us a feeling of closure. So we as human beings, we don't like open ends. And your life as a leader or an executive is busy enough. You don't need another open-ended thread of conversations going around. So we don't like open ends. We want things to be closed. And if somebody comes to me, or they walk up to your desk in the middle of the day and ask you for advice, you tell them what to do so they can move on. And frankly, you can also move on with what you have to do. You've got a lot of things on your plate as well, no? So if there's a problem, I want to have it fixed. So we are almost conditioned for this. So our problem-solving mind and our problem-solving focus for functional topics trains us literally to fix problems that people bring to us. This is where many people have a huge opportunity to adjust in approach. Because problem solving with people and what amounts to a solution that is lasting for somebody who asks you, that is a very different ballgame. And it's a very different kind of problem solving that we're looking at. So when we solve, we give ourselves instant gratification. It gives us closure. And again, it feeds our needs because somebody just walks away, they say thank you, and you feel like you, in your mind, pat yourself on the back and say, good, one more done. And that's relates to the last item, to the last number 7. When we solve, in that moment, it just feels fast. It gets the other person to move on. It gets you to move on. And some people even might say it gets some of the people off their back. Yeah, you use your positional power, you use your expertise. You tell them what they should do based on your good judgment, your sound judgment. And if they fail, whose fault is it? Most likely theirs. What you told them has worked before. Why should it not work? And in the end, you've asked them, if you need any help, come to me. If there's anything else, let me know. You've told them, right? That they can come to you again. So you've given them the chance, you've given them advice. So what is there to go wrong? Yeah, so this feeling of advising as being fast can be quite treacherous. Because it feels fast, but what often happens is our people come to us again and again. And it feeds our impatience to get as many topics as possible off our mental checklist. Yeah, so these were 7 items to summarize what in my view are very important factors that make us want to solve. And again, these are not negative things. They are just facts. They are human behaviors. They are very natural to us. But when we understand them, when we understand why we do it, we have an opportunity to also figure out what might be the negative impact of doing it all the time. Because there might be a better way to do it to save time in the long run. So let me summarize. What were the 7 items? We genuinely want to help. Second, when we solve, it helps us rely on the most important thing that made us great, which is our knowledge and expertise. Number 3, we love to be needed and reaffirmed. Number 4, we solve right now because we think they need our advice right now. There's no time to waste. Number 5, when we give advice, it keeps us in control of the conversation. And number 6, solving something gives us closure. And number 7, problem solving for others simply feels fast. So let that sink in, and I am sure, like me, many of you recognize yourself in these kind of behaviors. So in the next episode, we'll have a closer look at understanding what might be the negative side effects of only behaving that way with your team members. Hope this was interesting. Hope to hear and talk to you again soon. Bye.
You have been listening to the Coaching Leader Podcast, your resource to activate strengths and coaching skills in leaders. Head over to IntelliCoach.org to check out our blog and offers. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you for tuning in.
Hello again. And so this is the extra part of the podcast where I ramble on a little bit on a more personal level. So you don't have to listen to this. So this might not be as interesting to you. So I thought I'd just share a few more thoughts about this episode on a more personal level. Because it made me really think back to my own experience as a people leader. And I might say quite some more embarrassing examples that come to mind for me here, how I behaved. And I must say, when I became a people leader first, and that was almost 9 years ago, at the time then, I started to lead 5 people and then 10 at the peak, 10 direct reports. So I was not taught in any way how to coach. So the difference, what coaching means, was not really important. So I've had a good people leader at that time, and they gave me good guidance. So they were a good leader to me. But the question of whether I should deliberately switch on some coaching behaviors was just simply not present. And if somebody had asked me at that time, Mike, are you coaching your people? I would say, sure. I mean, I give them all I got. I advise them, I help, I do everything I can to make them do great work. So what does that entail, Mike? Yeah, probably I would say I advise them a lot. I give them a lot of my ideas. I give them everything, seriously. So all my experience and knowledge, that's especially when, it's your first people leader assignment, you do this. You give them all you got. So, and I was blessed with a very good, positive team, and we had a good time. And I remember one time when we were about to embark on a new, very, very new upgraded SAP system. And I saw it as my task to help everybody understand really how to use it well. And what I did was without asking my team, I created a manual for how to run the transactions that we had to do in a very meticulous, step-by-step manner. Because I thought the official things that the project team gave to us is just not good enough to ensure consistency. I wanted things to be black and white and easy for my team. But in retrospect, I've never asked them whether they actually wanted that. So, and I spent a lot of time on that, and I poured my heart into this document. And I gave it to my team and told them, look, this is something that's supposed to be really useful for you and helpful. Why don't you use that? And I observed over the months that followed that ownership of that document was really low. And people in my team also didn't follow the steps all into detail. And I was always perplexed by that, because we have good relationships, yet this document, which is supposed to be really helpful, it doesn't land with them. There's no ownership. They wouldn't update it on their own to make it reflect realities and so forth. And I was really confused. And what did I do at that time? If something doesn't work, of course, you do more of it, right? So I've spent even more time on this document and try to make it even better. I try to solve for them, try to help them with my guidance, my expertise, because I felt this is the best way for me to help them. Pour my heart, my functional knowledge on top of my people leader tasks right in there. And in the end, I had to admit that this document was almost dead on arrival. Yes, they all probably browsed through it for a little while, but did they really use it? No. And it was only a few years ago that it finally clicked with me. Why that is the case? It's because I simply did not involve them in creating them. And I felt like at the time I want to be nice to them. I don't want to burden them with something which I just had come up in my own head. But it never even dawned to me at that time to ask them, for example, the very simple coaching question in a team meeting. How do you feel about achieving consistency in the way we handle the system going forward? What could we do? Because that's one thing our internal customers expect from us. One person can't just completely communicate in a different person than the other. So we have this work list of requests to go through, and we all sort of have to achieve at the same outcome. How do you think we could do it? Or what would be the positive way of doing it this way? Or what would be the positive impact if we were consistent? It's so painful now to admit, in retrospect, hindsight 2020, what I could have done differently through just a few questions and just involving them, building their ownership. And maybe they would have not even come up with a manual. Maybe it's just a sticky note that every one of them writes up and puts near their computer for the 5 most important consistency reminders. And maybe that would have been successful, and it would have saved me buckloads of time, hours and hours of time. I find this is just one example from my past too. That's a bit painful to admit, I have to say, but it's so illuminating to see the potential where I could have saved time. Because the fact is, I did spend many hours, extreme hours in this case, on creating this manual to ensure consistency. Because I was good at it. I was able to very professionally put this document up, but it was not useful to them. And it didn't even bother asking them what might be their way to achieve the outcome of consistency. And that would have allowed me to spend a lot more time on the things that were more important in my role at that time. Yeah, so a little bit of a painful way to look back, but I've got many of these stories in my past, so it makes me always think, never lose these kind of opportunities again to ask at least some questions before you give advice, because they probably have their own ways of doing things. That is for that today, for our extended part of the podcast. Thanks again for listening to my rambling, and I wish you a good day ahead. Bye.